Welcome everyone to another educational presentation by the Wellness Institute of Dallas. This is Dr. Rayner, and I look forward to going through a very important subject matter with you, and that is environmental burdens. The goal we have for you for this presentation on environmental burdens is really just to understand the chemical burden that our environment does pose to us at times, but really just to educate and empower you to help navigate through that environment and just help to understand how we can prevent exposures when they're not necessarily necessary, and then two things we can do to strengthen our own body's inborn physiology to deal with those exposures when they do happen. The reason it's important to understand chemicals in our environment is because these chemicals, when our body is working well, should have no effect, but when our body loses its ability to handle them, can lead to different basically breakdowns in health. They can lead to cancer, obesity, diabetes, degeneration of the brain and other neurological diseases, sex hormone disruption and other endocrine issues, and autoimmunity, where our body loses the ability to discern what is our own tissue versus foreign tissue. So if we were all to go out and get tested today for, let's just say, heavy metals as an example, the majority of us would come back showing that we have heavy metals in our body. Even studies dating back and looking at the cadavers of mummies that have been mummified show that the mummies were contaminated with heavy metal exposure. Now, the main question is why are we now seeing these health issues arise if we've had heavy metal exposure over centuries? There's no one straight answer for this. It's really multiple issues going on that have this compounding effect on our body's immune system. And it's when our body's immune system all of a sudden loses the ability to handle and tolerate those chemicals, we start to see issue. So let's look at some things that act in our body to help basically protect our immune system from having to deal with these chemical burdens. One, we have antioxidant systems. Okay, very powerful, and they help quench chemicals in our body to make sure they don't stress our immune system. We have our liver, our detoxification systems in our liver. We're going to go through another separate talk that just breaks down this entire system just on its own. We have our barrier system, which is our gut barrier, our lung barriers, and our blood-brain barrier that keep chemicals in an important environment kind of shed away from the rest of our bodies. And then we also have our immune system. Our immune system can effectively deal with these basically chemicals as they're presented to us. It's just when our immune system gets stressed to the max, when it loses its ability to do so. So these things are all in place to protect us, but if there's enough stress to all those systems, you're going to see some kinks in the chain and something's going to become weakened and we become susceptible. We know that our immune system can and our body can tolerate these chemicals and get them out of our system, but let's look at why so many of these chemicals are having the ability to be introduced to our system in the first place. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, does not require testing on chemicals introduced to the market unless there's existing research showing that there's harm. So if it's a new chemical, they may not be scrutinized like they should, and this leads to a 90% approval of new chemicals when they're being introduced to the market. What does this mean over time? Well, it means that the 80,000 new chemicals introduced to this Mother Earth, that only 25% or 20,000 of them have been tested. And this isn't even being tested for the long-term side effects. This is just if there's any short-term studies that show there's a toxic effect of these chemicals. So the moral of the story is not how many toxins that you have in your system or you've been exposed to, it's just how is your immune system reacting to these chemicals. So let's look at some of the possible ways that these chemicals become toxic to our body and our environment. There's three different models or theories that researchers have. One is a dose-dependent toxicity, which means you're exposed to such a large quantity of a dose of this toxic chemical that it automatically creates a reaction because it's too much for your body to handle all at once. Then there's the number two, the buildup model of toxicity, which is although it's a low exposure, it's just you're going to that same job site or you're being exposed to that same chemical day after day which leads to a gradual reaction to this chemical. And third, the immune tolerance model, which is heavily studied actually by a researcher out of Austin, Dr. C.S. Miller. And basically what happens is your immune system has had such a burden placed on it, whether it's other chemicals, other immune challenges, but what happens is your immune system starts to react to this chemical, and this starts to cause a very, very negative side effect to your body. Let's look at some common signs that we find when patients and people start to lose their tolerance to chemicals. You'll start to see this intolerance to smells. You'll walk into a room and somebody's got too much perfume or cologne on, and this may trigger a headache or nausea. Intolerance to metals and jewelry on your skin, maybe start to itch or have a rash. Shampoos, lotions, detergents, and fabric softeners may cause a reaction. Multiple food reactions start to become a part of your daily story. And then you can have constant skin outbreaks from different chemicals in your environment. Now, this is just a list of a few. It doesn't mean you absolutely have an issue with it, but these are some of the early signs that chemicals are starting to basically cause or provoke an issue to your body and the immune system. We have here a slide of the most common daily chemical burdens that we face on a day-to-day basis in our environment. We're going to start off with not the most common one in particular, but one that is pretty prevalent, and that's aflatoxins. If you look at the picture on the screen, you'll see a cob of corn and what appears to be mold on the corn. So can I clarify what aflatoxins are? Aflatoxins are basically chemical toxins released from fungi and molds that really can cause damage and stress to the human immune system when they're basically consumed. Some common sources of aflatoxins are grains, nuts, milk and dairy products, dried fruits, vegetable oils like olive oil and corn oil, and cosmetics. Basically anything that's stored in a bin, if it's basically any chance of getting some moisture on it, you have the chance for getting mold growth and ultimately this toxic formation of aflatoxin. Next on our common chemical list, we find formaldehydes. Formaldehydes are a chemical that are commonly used in plastic resins, textile industry, finishers, and adhesives, and they're used at an alarming rate. There's 50 million pounds produced every year worldwide, okay, and released into our environment. So common sources, just kind of review, we have adhesives on carpet, plywood and particle board adhesive, different paints, housing foams, bath product preservatives. Our artificial sweeteners, when they're at room temperature, convert to formaldehyde. A lot of people don't know this, and this is a really bad thing about those on top of other toxic effects of those. Topical wart medications, mouthwashes, embalming agents, oil-based skincare products, fabric finishers, grease-resistant sprays, disinfectant solutions, shampoos, and hair products. Those are all common sources of formaldehydes. And as you can see by this warning sign, formaldehyde should be cautioned when you approach it. It's not a nice chemical, and it's very, very toxic to our body. Third on our list is a chemical called isocyanates. They are known in animal studies to cause cancers. Basically, when we are exposed to them, you may notice signs like irritation of the skin and our mucous membranes, which may translate into like tightness in your chest, kind of wheezing and breathing troubles. Some common sources are foams. So you'll see upholstery, our mattresses that we sleep on nightly, pillows, and shipping foam are heavily contaminated with isocyanates. Insulation, our footwear, again adhesives, carpet underlay, and boat decks are all very common sources of isocyanates. Number 4 on our list, we have something called trimellitic and phthalic anhydrides. These are commonly industrial chemicals that are found most commonly in fiberglass and PVC piping. But the research has shown that they are very large endocrine or hormone disruptors. They can cause skin, eye, and respiratory irritation when exposed. Again, some more common sources are like fiberglass in our shower stalls, synthetic marble, the PVC piping, paint resin. It's a flame retardant, and it's commonly in those. It's in tanning agents, insect repellents, and perfumes. One note: I had a patient that had skin cancer and started spray tanning, and she was spray tanning and exposing herself to this chemical on a day-to-day basis. And we did some testing that found out that she was reacting to this chemical in particular, and it was causing huge endocrine issues with her and having trouble with her conceiving and getting pregnant. So anyways, these are real, just one example, but again, these chemicals are pretty prevalent in a lot of our products. Benzene is our next chemical on the list that's commonly in our environment. 50% of our exposure in the US to this chemical is through cigarette smoke. It's classified as a cancer-causing agent. It's linked to leukemia, multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It suppresses our bone marrow, so we decrease red blood cells and white blood cell production. And it can also lead to very severe neurological symptoms. Like I said, it's commonly found in cigarette smoke, but it's also found in gas fumes and traffic exhaust. It can also be found in some of our less clean detergents, pesticides, lubricants, dyes, glues, and art supplies. These are all common sources. And again, I mean, it's one of many chemicals in our environment that we're challenged with daily. This next chemical will probably sound pretty familiar to most of you. Bisphenol A, abbreviated known as BPA. You see it in all our plastic bottles, whether it's trying to claim it's BPA free. Anyways, it's involved in all plastics. Even if the plastic says BPA free, still proceed with skepticism as you buy that product. But the research shows this is a profound hormone disruptor, and it's commonly associated with infertility, miscarriages, and developmental and neurological delays. It's a 3-to-1 ratio higher in women than men. Again, it's because it's in some makeup as well. I think that's kind of the main reason. But other sources for BPA, again, plastics, all the way to that ketchup bottle or that Starbucks cup that we get when we go to Starbucks and get that delicious coffee. The inside coating of cans is labeled with BPA. Sales receipts has BPA on it. Big thing is you got to picture those plastic containers that we take and put in the microwave and we heat up. That leaches this plastic out of it. The Starbucks cup that has the plastic lid, and we pour hot fluid through that lid and we leach more BPA out of it. Or if you ever go up to a grocery store, and especially in Texas in the dead of summer in the heat, you'll see bottles of plastic water sitting outside the store in direct sunlight. And you have to understand that these basically this storage practice of the water is allowing for BPA to be leached into the water that we're going to go buy and drink, and yet we think we're doing ourselves a favor by buying the plastic bottles. So BPA is a fairly common one that a lot of you probably have heard of, at least somewhat in the past, but again, it is a very big hormone disruptor and something that's very prevalent. One thing you can do, I know I've gotten them from Sears Outlet. You can go and get glass containers, so you can kind of get rid of those plastic storage containers. Next chemical up is one called tetrabromobisphenol A. Similar to the previous one, different chemical structure where it's got a bromine group or 4 of them attached to it. But anyways, that's just the chemistry of it. It's actually a fire retardant that's commonly used in electronic equipment. So where you see the highest amount of our exposure is through the disposal of old electronic equipment, and actually this runoff of this chemical into our soil, into our crops, and into our vegetable contamination. So when we're exposed and our immune system starts to not be able to handle this chemical, you'll start to see neurobehavioral developmental issues, thyroid hormone issues, issues with our kidneys and liver health, and you can see some fetal toxicity to newborns or the developing baby. Our next chemical is one that goes by the name of tetrachloroethylene, and as you can see by the picture, it's associated with dry cleaning because this is the fluid, or it's found in the fluid used with dry cleaning. It's also found in degreasing solutions, spot and carpet cleaner, paint stripping material, spray tanners. And the main thing is with this, our government classifies it as a group 2A carcinogen or cancer-causing agent. And it also has been found to be something that acts on the nervous system to depress its function. So from a general standpoint, I'm currently actually investigating different dry cleaning options for us out there. I do use dry cleaning. I'm trying to find the best fit. And when I do, I'll make sure we post it on our website. So anybody who wants to kind of move to a cleaner option, you have that ability. Parabens are next on our list. And again, many of you probably have heard of them. Basically, they're a chemical preservative found in cosmetics and toiletries. They are known hormone disruptors, and as a result, they've been linked to breast cancer as a result of their estrogen activity in the body. Common sources are cosmetics, so your lipsticks, your mascaras, shampoos, shaving gels, skin moisturizers, toothpaste, food additives, sunscreen, deodorants, cologne, perfumes, and the list goes on. They're everywhere. You can see how we're constantly exposed to them. And the biggest thing is we don't need to be. Companies are now starting to make more and more paraben-free alternatives. If you go to Central Market, Whole Foods, I mean, I have no affiliation with those two stores, but those are two of the more commonly widespread stores that have a very good selection of products that are paraben-free. Looking to now mercury and different mixed heavy metals. For example, like nickel, cobalt, cadmium, lead, arsenic, again, mercury. The big thing is we all have these in our body, but when we do have them in there, they can be pretty alarming to our immune system. If they're stored away in fat tissue, they usually don't have much of a consequence. But common sources are medical implants, dental fixtures, and basically fillings, like the old ones, the amalgam fillings. Toys, particularly children's toys, tend to be heavily contaminated with them. Paints. Paint isn't so much now, but old paints, old houses, you have to worry about lead. Cigarette smoke, batteries, pesticides, and herbicides. These are all common sources. One thing that people like to do when they been told that they have heavy metal toxicity is they like to do something called chelation therapy. Myself and Dr. Nutt kind of have an opinion on chelation therapy, and if it is something you're considering, please approach us and ask us first, because like I said, these chemicals and these metals are usually harmless when they're stored away in fat tissue. It's really when these chemicals are pulled into our bloodstream and brought across into the brain environment where they can be damaging, and that's what you have to watch out for with chelation therapy. And if this is something you're considering, please approach us. We have some research articles that kind of outline some side effects and some issues with it, but we just want you to make an educated decision before you move forward with something like that. So the next chemical, kind of some controversy with it. You hear about it in the news a lot. It's called Roundup, or its chemical name glyphosate. It's a herbicide that's used and sprayed on a lot of the food we eat, and this is why I caution you to try to buy organic and clean produce when possible. Just because if you look at this guy, he's in a full-out hazmat suit spraying this stuff on produce, and yet we consume this stuff on a day-to-day basis, blindly assuming that it's supposed to be good for us. And I'm here to tell you that the research shows that it's not. There's an article that came out in April of 2013 that shows that it disrupts a lot of our liver enzymes, which basically leads to more issues clearing other chemicals out of our body and breaking down hormones and more toxic effects. And you're actually going to learn about that liver enzyme in our next our sister presentation to this one on liver detoxification. Another research article with glyphosate found that when chronically exposed to different animals, particularly in this study, a rabbit study, that these rabbits had tumors laden throughout their body as a consequence of being exposed to this stuff over long periods of time. Anyways, moral of the story is there's so much research out there on glyphosate and Roundup and the many negative effects of it. Just the biggest issue is in the news we're being told that, I mean, organic isn't any different than inorganic. And I'm here to caution you that you got to understand the motives behind that news. But the research is pretty conclusive that you do not want to consume this stuff in large amounts. Getting near the end of our chemicals here, but again, this one's no less important relative to the other ones. This one's called titanium dioxide. A lot of you may or may not know if you're consuming it, but for the most part, if you brush your teeth, you likely are. If you painted with any type of paint, it's in there. It's a whitening agent in a lot of basically products like cosmetics, toothpaste, to shaving cream, to paint, and again, even to supplements. I read through supplements very, very rigorously because, again, if you're going to invest your money in a supplement or a product, you want to make sure you know what's in it. And the reason titanium dioxide is probably not a good thing for us to be consuming is it's been classified as a group 2B carcinogen, again, a cancer-causing agent with cancer-causing potential to humans. So titanium worldwide accounts for 70% of the total production of volume pigments, which means it's used in a ton of products to add that whitening color or appearance to that product. Again, there's many options now that are starting to remove titanium dioxide from it. I mean, toothpaste, Jason's and Tom's, those two brands have fluoride-free and titanium dioxide-free options. So anyway, start looking for those when you go to the grocery store, because I assure you, I mean, it's a better option for you. So that wraps up our chemicals on our list. By no means is that a complete list of all the chemicals that we need to watch out for, but it is a very good start, and it's really a list of the more prevalent chemicals in our environment, and especially the chemicals that tend to have some pretty serious side effects and a role in some of the issues we're facing today. Now, let's step back. I mean, the whole reason we went through those is, one, so we can help clean up our environment, so we can give you some information so you can go and make some better decisions when you go grocery shopping, buy toothpaste, buy cosmetics, and just have an idea of where some of these hidden sources of chemicals and challenges to our body and our physiology are. I mean, we're going to go through, we have a whole second presentation to just teach you about how our body does deal with them when they enter our body. But we want to kind of separate them so you can kind of go through, learn this presentation, go act on it, change your grocery shopping or your cosmetic shopping up a little bit, because one, I mean, I assure you it will help in the long run, and two, you'll be doing your body a huge favor by taking some stress off of it. And again, really, women, you guys get hit a lot because, I mean, most men, especially, they're not going to admit it, don't use cosmetics. And you guys do on a day-to-day basis, and it's one big challenge that you guys expose yourself to. So at least if you're going to keep using cosmetics, just kind of start cleaning them up. We have some solutions, some options. Just contact us, ask us, and we'll help direct you through those better options for cosmetics. So again, we're not victims to it. Our environment we can handle. We just have to support basically our liver's ability to clear it out, our ability to just kind of avoid the chemicals when we possibly can. Make sure our gut and our barriers in our body, like our blood-brain barrier, our gut barrier, our lung barriers, are well intact, which means, again, really comes down to supporting our immune system and making sure we're not under long-term stress and immunological challenge. So this is the end of our presentation on chemical burdens. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have questions, please write them down, email us, give us a call. We'd love to answer them. And again, expect the follow-up presentation on liver detoxification to be sent your way soon. Thank you very much.